A very good morning on this blessed Sabbath, the 17th of October 2020. I'd like to welcome you all to BSM TV broadcasting, where we meet to enjoy meat in due season. I want to welcome you all in the comfort of your homes, and I'm saying blessed Sabbath to you all in four corners of the world. I hope the world has been, God has been blessing you the whole week, and now we meet on this Sabbath. So our topic today is still continuing on the preparation for the kingdom. We are going to prepare for the kingdom until Christ finds us ready to enter into the kingdom. I promise you, we'll be bringing all these lessons every Sabbath morning from 10 o'clock upwards, so that we can all be ready to enter. It's such an important event. It cannot be just an event we can expect to come without preparation. And preparation is not just done isolated like that. We have to have somewhere where the meat and due season is broadcasted, so that you and I are able to know what is allowed, what qualifications we should have, so that we enter into the kingdom. At least God should find us preparing to enter into the kingdom. So we will broadcast all the necessities for us to understand what are we supposed to prepare. Last night we were talking about circumcision, which we all studied, and we saw it was a requirement also for the kingdom to be established. So today I'm on God's covenant promises, because God promised, and we want to know whether we are involved in those covenant promises, because I've seen people saying we are a covenant keeping people. So we want to know what this covenant is, and was it, are we in it, or do we need to be prepared for the kingdom by upholding those covenant promises, so that we are ready for what God has promised for us. Now, for us to start this lesson, let's go to a quote by Sister White from Review and Herald in March 3 and in 1874. Let us read from there. March 3, 1874, Review and Herald. Let's start from where it says Satan knew.
Satan knew what he had lost.
Right. So the first sentence is, we know Satan lost something. So he knew what he lost. He lost something. Now let's study, what did Satan lose? And he knows it. You know what? He knows what he has lost. So this chapter starts with Satan knew what he lost. Right?
Satan knew what he had lost.
Right?
He now feared that his empire over the world was to be contested, his right disputed, and his power broken. He knew through prophecy that a savior was predicted, and that his kingdom would not be established in earthly triumph and with worldly honor and display. He knew that ancient prophecies foretold a kingdom to be established by the Prince of Heaven upon the earth.
That's what he knew. Review and Herald tells us clearly that the devil knows the kingdom is going to be established on earth. He knows. So when Christ died on the cross, he knew what Christ was dying for. Was dying for us to inherit that kingdom. Because that's the whole issue of the kingdom. Because when Adam and Eve were created, they were in the kingdom. They were in the kingdom of glory. Now, who disturbed that kingdom? It was the snake. And when the snake came, the whole issue was to disturb that kingdom which had been established in the Garden of Eden. So, when Christ came to die on the cross, he knew he's lost it again. So, his aim is to inherit that kingdom, to make sure that kingdom which was in Adam and Eve will never be inherited on earth. But when Christ came to die, because that's the whole, why would we have Christ coming to die? The whole plan of salvation. Okay, said when Adam and Eve sinned, and what did they sin? They ate of that tree, and that disturbed the kingdom. Now, the whole essence of the great controversy between Christ and the devil is the kingdom. The kingdom which was established in the Garden of Eden, the devil well knew that this kingdom, I have to take it off. That's why he came to Adam and Eve. The whole essence was not only to make them sin, but the whole aim was to make sure this kingdom of glory is out. Now, when Christ came to die on the cross, he knew that kingdom. So, what is God and this devil fighting for? There's one thing that is there. Supposing this cup is the kingdom. Supposing this cup is the kingdom, right? And when this cup is the kingdom, let's say this is the kingdom, right? God is on the other hand putting Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And the devil is on the other hand trying to take off the kingdom. So this is what he did. He took off the kingdom when he made Adam and Eve sin. Now, when Christ came to die on the cross, what he was dying for, he was dying only to make sure this kingdom is taken back to its original place. That's the whole essence of the death of Christ. It was just to make sure that cup, that kingdom is back. Now here we are being told, when Christ came to die on the cross, Satan knew for sure that kingdom is taken. So they are only arguing over one issue. What is the kingdom? So if you see people fighting that there is no kingdom established on earth, they are together with the devil who is saying the kingdom should not be established here. And do you know what? The secret is that the devil surely knows once you lose that kingdom on earth, you will neither get the kingdom in heaven. So the only thing to fight people so that they don't go to heaven is to make sure they do not inherit that kingdom on earth. Do you understand? So now, when we read, we understand their great controversy. The whole great controversy is to put us back into the Garden of Eden in the kingdom on earth. That's the great controversy. Now here it says, Satan knew what he had lost. He now feared that his empire, that is the kingdom that he has taken, over the world was to be contested. So when Christ came to die, he knew that that empire now, which is the kingdom which was on earth in the Garden of Eden, is now being brought back. Do you understand? Now, that was now his empire. When he made them sin, he took over the empire. And he took over the kingdom. And the kingdom of glory was taken off. We are now in the kingdom of grace. And all along, he is trying to make sure that kingdom of glory will never come back again. Now here it says, he knew through prophecy. So he's a prophecy scholar. He knew through prophecy that a savior was predicted and that his kingdom would not be established in earthly triumph and with worldly honor and display. He knew that ancient prophecies foretold a kingdom to be established by the Prince of Heaven upon the earth. He knew that. He studies all these prophecies we are reading about. The devil is studying it. He knows it. He knows through these prophecies. Now, if you keep yourself without reading these prophecies, you actually do not know what is about to happen. Because what is about to happen is the kingdom being brought back on earth so that we are back to Eden. This is the whole issue of the controversy from the beginning of the world to the end. It's the establishment of that kingdom. So that is back before we go to heaven. It should go back. Now, read on from where you left. He knew.
He knew through prophecy that a savior was predicted and that his kingdom would not be established in earthly triumph and with worldly honor and display.
Right?
He knew that ancient prophecies foretold a kingdom to be established by the Prince of Heaven upon the earth.
He knew that, right?
Which he claimed as his dominion.
So he had claimed, by making Adam and Eve sin, he had claimed that kingdom. Now, he's seeing Christ has come to die. Now he knows the kingdom is going to go back. So what he's doing from the time Christ died until the time Christ comes is fighting to make sure that kingdom is not brought back. How does he fight? By inspiring people that this kingdom is never going to be established on earth. That's how he is fighting. Now read on. His kingdom
would embrace all the kingdoms of the world.
Now you know that when Christ comes, now he's going to establish that kingdom which will embrace all other kingdoms. That's why Daniel chapter 2 says, let's go to Daniel chapter 2. When he says, in the time of the 10 toes, it will start from verse 42. Yeah? Daniel chapter 2. Mm-hmm.
And as the toes of the feet
right
were part of iron
right
and part of clay.
Is it where we are in the 10 toes on the image of Daniel? We are on the 10 toes, isn't it? And the toes of the feet were partly iron and what?
And partly clay.
Right?
So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken.
Right?
And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with merry clay,
right,
they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men,
right,
but they shall not cleave one to another,
right,
even as iron is not mixed with clay.
This is the time where we are in the 10 toes, in the last kingdom on earth. But during that kingdom on earth, where we have 10 toes, which is divided areas of the land where each one has a ruler, those are the 10 toes. Now, read on. While we are there, what happens?
And in the days
of these kingdoms
shall the God of heaven
right
set up a kingdom
right
which shall never be destroyed,
right,
and the kingdom shall not be left to other people.
Has the stage of Daniel promised that the kingdom is going to be established? When? In the days, not after the days of the 10 toes, but in the days of the 10 toes. So we are expecting a kingdom to come. While we are having so many nations being ruled differently. So when this time is the kingdom of the 10 toes, what do we expect? A big stone coming, which is the kingdom. The kingdom will be established on earth in the days of the 10 toes. Of before, not after, but in the days when this earth history has not yet closed. The kingdom is going to be established. The prophecy said, that's what the devil knew. Satan knows through prophecy. This is the prophecy that God means, that in the days of the 10 toes, that's when the kingdom is going to be spread. So you see, those who were walking with Christ when he came at the first time, it means they were wrong in the time they were expecting the kingdom. You understand? They were expecting the kingdom in the time of the iron, which is Roman Empire. But we should expect in the 10 toes. Now, that's why Christ, we saw last week when we were studying, wherever he was walking, they were expecting him to establish the kingdom. So why? Because they knew from prophets that he is going to bring the kingdom on earth. Now, the devil also is a diligent student of the prophecies. So he knows Christ is going to come. Now, why is he inspiring people to say the kingdom will never be established on earth? We will first go to heaven. We will do the... And he's inspiring the same people not to read the prophecies, not to understand. But we are here to study these prophecies and prepare for this kingdom. You understand? Our job now is to sit down and study and prepare for the kingdom. God wants us to prepare for that kingdom because it's an important event which is about to happen. You understand? Right, read on. Now, let's go back to Review and Herald. He said his kingdom will embrace all the kingdoms of the world. This is what the kingdom will do. And then his power and his glory would cease. Read on.
His kingdom would embrace all the kingdoms of the world.
That's what the devil wanted. He took that cup, which is the kingdom which was in the Garden of Eden, so that the whole world, he claims it to his own. Now, when Christ came to die, it was a signal to the devil that the kingdom is going to be taken back to Adam and Eve. Now, he well knew the prophecy that he is going to establish on earth. But he wanted his to embrace the whole world and take the whole world to himself. Now read on.
His kingdom would embrace all the kingdoms of the world,
Mm-hmm.
and then his power and his glory would cease, and he received his retribution for the sins he had introduced in the world and for the misery he had brought upon man.
Right. So he is scared that when Christ comes and establishes the kingdom, that's when now Christ is going to take over all these kingdoms. Now he says, what about the sins that he had made all these nations inherit? He knows that's his time for his retribution. That's his time he is going to lose out when Christ comes to establish the kingdom. He knows the time is now nearer. You understand? Now read on. He knew.
He knew that everything which concerned his prosperity was pending upon his success or failure in overcoming Christ.
Right?
With his temptations in the wilderness.
Right?
He brought to bear upon Christ every artifice and force of his powerful temptations to allure him from his alliance.
Right. That's why he took him first and said, I'll give you this kingdom if you only bow. When Christ came, he was now promising him, he was trying to negotiate with him before he died. So I'll give you all if you just bow down to me. And Christ refused. That's why Christ received all this painful death from the devil, because he was trying to make sure he recants from his mission to come and die and restart to repossess this kingdom. So the whole purpose of the controversy, go to the bottom on 917 ways. It says not 917, where I said the introduction. Right, have you found it? It's from Answer Book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here Moses.
Yeah. No. From Answer Book. Right. If you haven't found it, so let's start from where the lesson starts, because I know it's a lot of things that we have to explain there, so it needs a day of its own. Yeah. But let us start. We want to see what was there in the beginning, so that we can really know, was there a promise for this kingdom? Was this kingdom really promised in different chapters of the Bible? They should assure, in the spirit of prophecy, they should assure us, were we made to wait for this kingdom in a covenant? Do you understand? That's why the topic is saying, are we keeping the covenant? That's why when Christ said, we are heirs according to the like in Isaiah, go to Isaiah chapter 58. You see, we are heirs according to the covenant. Which covenant? Isaiah 58. Verse 13.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath,
Right?
from doing thy pleasure on my holy day,
Right?
and call the Sabbath a delight,
Right?
the holy of the Lord honorable, and shalt honor him,
Right?
not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasures, nor speaking thine own words,
Right?
then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord,
Right?
and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth,
Right?
and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father.
Now, what is this heritage? Do you understand? So we want to find, is the heritage of our father, or Jacob our father, is it in the covenant promise? Now we have a lot to study throughout the day to day, so that we understand the covenant. If we understand that covenant which was promised to us, from the word it was promised, from the time it was promised, maybe it might dawn into our minds to prepare for the kingdom. Do you understand? Now let's read from I have a few verses for you to start from. Start from there, from the beginning of the great controversy. No. It's in a wrong way. It says actual. I've got a verse. I've got a verse there, and it says, "Give me the verse on there on the actual."
Genesis 13, verse 14.
Right. I said actual, yeah? Right. Sorry, technology, you lose. Now, my question is, before we start on that Genesis, is what land, yeah, did God choose to be the place where he would begin his work of restoring, of establishing this kingdom? Now, we have to check first as we study, check from scripture. Where did he say this kingdom will be established? Or the restoration or the dominion would go? Which land? Is it? Because the whole globe is full of countries. But it should say from the Bible. Let's go to Genesis chapter 13. Start from verse 14 and read 14 and 15. Yeah?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the men of Sodom, first Genesis
13 verse 14.
Okay, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him,
Mm-hmm.
lift up now thine eyes,
Right.
and look from the place where thou art northward and southward and eastward and westward.
Now, you remember when he called in the previous chapter, in Genesis chapter 12, when he called Abraham, he promised. Let's go to chapter 12 and see where he promised in Genesis chapter 12 there. Start on the last 5 verses of the end.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 16.
Right. Uh-huh. There.
And he entreated Abram
Mm-hmm.
well for her sake,
Mm-hmm.
and he had sheep and oxen,
Mm.
and asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and
Mhm.
camels.
Right. Who is that? It's Pharaoh. Now, when Abraham was called to go to a land, start from verse 1. Verse 1 in chapter 12. Now the Lord.
Now
said,
the Lord
Mhm.
had said unto Abram,
Mhm.
get thee out of thy country,
Right.
and from thy kindred,
Mhm.
and from thy father's house,
Right.
unto a land that I will shew thee.
Now, this is what he was told. So he took his nephew, the brother's son, Lot. He was told, go and I will show you a country. Yeah? From thy kindred. Do you understand? And from thy father's, leave them where he was, right? On the heir of the Chaldeans. Leave them and go. So we saw all that where you are seeing where he's being promised by Pharaoh to be given all this. He went through Egypt. You understand? The whole chapter, you read it on yourself. He went through Egypt. Actually, he went to Bethel and Hai. So when in Bethel and Hai, there was famine. And then he had to go to Egypt because of famine. He had to go there because of famine. So when he was there, he told Sarah, because Sarah was still, single, no child, nothing. But a young, very beautiful and fair. So he said, because you are so beautiful and fair, they might kill me so that they take you as a wife. So just say to them, I'm your brother. But that verse you are reading is when Pharaoh discovered that this one is not Abraham's sister. They had to, because God gave Pharaoh a plague. You understand? This is general history. A plague to say, do not touch Sarah. So when he discovered that this is not a sister, is his wife actually, he had said, why did you do that? Why did you do that to me? You wanted me to be struck dead by God. So he had to give all the animals, oxen, everything, gifts, and say, you go your way. And this is the verse you are reading. So let's go to our verse 13, chapter 13. Now we know where they are coming from. So when they are passing through Egypt, they've been chased by Pharaoh because of that deception. Now he's now heading to the land. Now when they went into the land of Canaan, God had to wait for Lot because all their heads of cattle, he was so rich. If you read from the beginning of the chapter, he was now very rich. And even Lot was rich. But their headsmen now were fighting. because there is no land to graze. That's what happens when prosperity occurs. So Abraham had to ask Lot, you take the first. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. Now, when Lot had gone, that's the verse you were reading, verse 14. Let's start where we are now.
And the Lord said unto Abram,
Right.
after that Lot was separated from him, lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art, northward, southward, and eastward, and westward.
Now, you see, God had to wait when Abraham was left alone without Lot. Why? Because Lot will also claim the inheritance, but Lot had gone to the area of Sodom and everything, because he saw how green it was. There was plenty of water and everything. But Abraham was left with the hills and plains and. So now God comes to Abraham and say, on that verse,
Verse 14 again.
yeah.
And now, okay. Lift up thine eyes,
Lift your eyes.
and look from the place where thou art,
All right.
northward,
Northward,
southward,
southward,
eastward,
eastward.
and westward.
I'm saying we are finding out which land is the kingdom going to be established. That's our question. Where is it right? Read on, verse 15.
For all the land
All the
which
land.
thou seest,
Right?
to thee will I give it,
Right.
and to thy seed forever.
Now, that's a promise. And when Abraham died, he had not stayed there, him and his seed. Because if you proceed, let's hear who.
Verse 16.
And
I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth,
right?
so that if a man can number the dust of the earth,
Right?
then shall thy seed also be numbered.
Can you number the dust? So he was told the children will be as many as the sand. So when he died, he had no children as many as the sand. We know the first child was Isaac. That is it. And when Isaac begat also Jacob and Esau. Did he die when there was sand, children as many as sand? Now read on there.
Verse 17. Arise,
Right.
walk through the land,
Right.
in the length of it,
In the
and
length
in the
of it.
breadth of it.
In the breadth of it.
For I will give it unto thee.
This one is yours. Did you hear God himself saying, this one is yours and all the children that you are going to have? But we're saying, when he died, he didn't have sand of the seed. Children as many as the sand of the seed. But who are those that he was being promised that these are the ones going to stay with you in this land, from the breadth of it, from the north and south, and who are those? Now, read on. Let's hear. That chapter is very interesting. Yeah?
Then Abram removed his tent,
Right?
and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre,
Right?
which is in Hebron,
Right?
and built there an altar
So
unto the Lord.
we are seeing how now he's progressing. Now, we are saying, we wanted to identify which land was he given. We shouldn't just say, oh, he's in the land of Israel, without checking from the Bible to see, is it exactly where if I'm found in that land of Israel, anyone who asks me, if I'm a Christian, I'll just say, it's the land of my father. Why? Because Galatians says, go to Galatians 3. Galatians say, if I'm a Christian now, then that land he was given is also mine. Now read on.
Galatians
3 verse 29, right?
And if ye be Christ's,
Right?
then are ye Abraham's seed,
You see?
and heirs according to the
I'm a
promise.
Christian, then that land is mine. Because why? There is a promise from God. But when he died, Hebrews chapter 11 says, he died without getting that promise. He died without getting the promise of the land. But we are seeing God from the very first chapter of the Bible in Genesis, he is promising Abraham. You understand? And he says, you and the children are as many as the sand of the sea. If you can count the sand of the sea, that's how many they should be in that land. Now you're telling me how many people can fit in that small land? How many? But do you think God is crazy somewhere? We're saying all of them are as many as the sand of the sea. They are going to fit in that land. Say, go to the breadth and the north go to the south of it, go everywhere. It shall be yours and your children in all their generations. This is what he has promised. Now, let's see another promise. We have to check from the Bible. Because when we finish the lesson, we should be able, by the way, we have Monday. Monday is a new moon, right? It's the first day of the month of Sheshvan. Tishri is coming to an end tomorrow. So this lesson again will continue on Monday. To those who are going to have the privilege of keeping the new moon by attending to these lessons, they will be fitted to prepare for the kingdom. You understand? Now let's read another verse and understand Psalms chapter 105, verse 8. David knew about the land, knew about this promise. What did he say? Let's hear. Verse 8 up to 11, right?
He hath remembered his covenant forever.
Right?
The word which he commanded
when
to
David
1,000
was ruling, he knew God had a covenant somewhere with Abraham. So he's saying, you have remembered your covenant promise. You know, the promise of that land is a covenant promise. It is like the rest of the covenant promises that we have. This is a major covenant promise. Why? That's the whole issue of the great controversy between God and the devil. Why they had to fight to take Adam and Eve out of Eden was to make sure the covenant promise now is disturbed. Because this land of the Garden of Eden was a kingdom on earth. And the devil removed it and wanted to own it. Now when Christ came to die, he wanted it back. But then how do they get it back? First, by selecting Abraham and giving the covenant promise of the land. And making sure, because they could have said, you should be a righteous when the heir of the child, then all you have is the land, you've got water, you've got everything. So, but it has to go back. He has to leave the heir of the child then to where the covenant promise. So you understand now when he says 3 times a year you have to go and keep the feast. Why? Why would you leave your comfortable homes and comfortable countries? Why? Because there is a land which is under a covenant promise. Did you understand that? It makes me jump when I think about it, because there's a land somewhere for you and me, which has been given as a promise, which is when you keep the Sabbath properly, you are also an heir to the promise. And which promise? Of the land. Did you hear that? It's a covenant promise. Now, let's hear. David knew about this covenant promise. Start from verse 8. Psalms 105, verse 8. Yeah?
He hath remembered his covenant
Right.
forever.
Mm-hmm.
The word which he commanded
Right.
to 1,000 generations.
You see, he knew God commanded that covenant 1,000 generations from his time, right? And
which covenant he made with Abraham,
right.
and his oath unto Isaac.
You see, the covenant promise was still being, kept by David, knowing that it was promised to Abraham 1,000 years backwards, but he still was in the covenant. That's why he was blessed, because he was keeping the covenant promise. He had that promise in mind that God is going to establish the kingdom and the children of Abraham are going to be as plenty as the sand of the sea in that land. Did you hear that? Now read. I say you go up to 11. Mm-hmm.
And confirm.
Right?
And confirmed the
Right.
same unto Jacob for a law, and to
He
Israel.
promised Abraham. That's the one that the man was promised that covenant was Abraham. Next, confirmed in Jacob, and what?
Which covenant he made with Abraham,
Abraham.
and his oath unto Isaac,
You see?
and confirmed the same unto Jacob for the law.
Do you see? That covenant promise. So why do we have the whole Bible in the Old Testament? It's got people who are under that covenant promise, step by step in their genealogy, until our time. We want to find out, does that covenant promise go until our time? You understand? And what? Up to verse 11, yeah?
and confirmed the same unto Jacob
Mhm.
for a law,
Right.
and to Israel for an everlasting covenant,
Do you see that?
saying,
Uh-huh.
Unto thee will I give the land of Canaan,
Right.
the lot of your inheritance.
Right. So you see, this covenant promise was known by David. Even in David's time, it was still being kept because it was following the genealogy. The covenant promise. Now I'm asking, are we preparing for the kingdom without this covenant promise? That's my question. If you are not preparing for the kingdom, then the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and David has a covenant promise. So where are you? According to the covenant promise of the land, where are you, brethren? Where are you? If you are not preparing for the kingdom, then you are not preparing to inherit the land when it was promised to Abraham that he was going to inherit the land together with all his children for all generations, who are as many as the sand of the sea. Now, where are you? Where are you? Now, you are saying we will go to heaven and avoid this promise. Are you saying that? The Bible doesn't say so. The spirit of prophecy doesn't say so. It says Satan knew about the covenant promise. He knew it. He knew that when Christ died, already he has taken the kingdom. That's why I say, I'm done. I'm finished. Because when he said it's finished on the cross, what was finished? Yes, the ceremonial system which was done by the earthly priest was finished so that it continues in heaven by the heavenly priest. But also what was finished? The reign of Satan fooling himself that is going to inherit the whole earth as his own kingdom. Now it's back to Christ. His duty now is to take you and I step by step into, if we were there until Monday the new moon, first day of the month of Sheshvan, I will be going into what are the 3 steps that you need so that you inherit the kingdom. How is it going to be inherited? That's where we go to the likes of the effect. Let me just give you a glimpse so that you know exactly what you are. It's a prophecy actually in Ezekiel chapter 17 verse 22, somewhere there. Just read. How is this promise inherited? How is this kingdom going to be? No, so that you know we are already in the covenant promise. It's already going step by step. Now 17 verse Ezekiel. 17 verse 22. What does it say?
Thus saith the Lord God,
right?
I will also take of the highest branch of the highest.
Do you see
cedar.
how it starts? It starts with the highest branch. Did you hear that? Highest branch. I will take the highest branch where?
I will take of the highest branch of
Right?
the high cedar,
right?
and will set it.
Now we are talking of a tree there, isn't it? There is a high cedar, which is a tree. What is a tree in prophecy? It's leadership. That's someone who is leading in as the highest branch is taken first. If you are to inherit that kingdom, that's what happens in a prophecy. Look at the prophecy. Is there of a tree, of a leader who is the highest branch? I'll take from the highest branch and what?
And will set it.
Right?
I will crop off from the top of his young twigs
You
a
see?
tender one.
He will look for the young trees, the tender one. Now these trees, it means the kingdom being established comes through the branch message. Did you hear that? We saw it when we saw Isaiah chapter 11. It was saying the stem of Jesse, and also we had a rod from the stem of Jesse and a branch. So we had 3 stages: the rod, the stem of Jesse, and the branch. Those are the 3 stages of. Now we are saying when you are in the branch level or in the truth, as it is when Christ entered the Holy of Holies, he assumed the new name, the branch. Now, when you are now in that new name of the branch, then he takes the highest branch established, and what happens?
I will crop off from the top of his young twigs
Right?
a tender one,
Tender one.
and will plant it upon a high mountain and eminent.
Right. So which mountain is it? High mountain. This is the kingdom church, the high mountain established upon the mountains of Israel. Let's hear further.
in the mountain of the height of Israel.
Did you hear
When I
where the
planted-
mountain is? Mountain is a church. Because in Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2 he says, listen, Isaiah 2 verse 2. Yeah. So it says he takes the branch first and put it on the high mountain of Israel. Now listen to the Isaiah 2 verse 2. What is a mountain?
And it shall come to pass
Yeah.
in the last days
Right?
that the mountain of the Lord's house
So
shall
the
be
mountain
established.
is the Lord's house, isn't it? So when I say the mountain of the Lord's house, what happens in the last days?
Isaiah 2.
Uh-huh.
The mountain of the Lord's house
Right.
shall be established in the top of the mountain.
Right. Did you hear? Now Ezekiel is telling, I will establish this mountain of the house of the Lord's house, which is now the top of the branch. Did you hear? The top of the established where? On the mountains of Israel. Now that's the kingdom, the church. The kingdom church will be the church triumphant. We know the first church, which is now we are in the church militant. Militant, it only means it's mixed the wheat and tares together. That's church militant. But when it is church triumphant, it will be the top branch, which will be established on the top of the mountain. And Isaiah calls it the mountain of the Lord's house, which will established on the top of the mountain. Now go to Ezekiel. Now this is another lesson. It shouldn't divert us from the lesson. It's just to show you how prophetically it's going to be established. We should be full of that. And when we are well prepared for the kingdom, there is no discord in the kingdom. We know exactly what the prophecies have said and we follow suit. Now let's go back to where we were reading here. Right. 105. We finished up to 11. Psalms 105. Yeah. Go to another one. Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 34. Verse 1 to 4.
And Moses went up from the plains of Moab unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, that is over against Jericho.
We all
And the
know
Lord-
about the story of Moses. And that's why we sing about Pisgah. Yeah? Sepa Gomorore Pisgah. We sing about that on the mountain of Pisgah. What was he shown? Before his death, he went to that mountain of Pisgah. And what did he see? Yeah, this is what we are studying now from the Bible. Because even Sister White comments about it. What exactly did Moses see? Because we are saying, where is this kingdom going to be established? But we are studying from prophecy and we are studying from the Bible, from what our pioneers in the Bible were shown, like Moses. He's a pioneer. Now he's taken before his death on Mount Pisgah. What is it that he sees? Right?
And Moses went up from the plains of Moab
Right.
unto the mountain of Nebo, to the top of Pisgah,
Right?
that is over against Jericho.
Right?
And the Lord shewed him all the land
Do you
of
see,
Gilead. and
over
Naphtali.
the land of Jericho, there on Jericho, you remember when Joshua took over, the first thing was to conquer Jericho. The walls of Jericho went down. So Moses died. He went on the top of Jericho just to be shown. Right? Read on.
And all Naphtali, and the land of Ephraim, and Manasseh, and all the land of Judah, unto the utmost sea, and the south, and the plain of the valley of Jericho,
Right?
the city of palm trees, and unto Zoar. And the Lord said unto him,
Right?
This is the land which I swear unto Abraham.
Do you see now
Unto
God
Isaac.
is now saying, repeating, we said, we want to find out which one is the land where he is going to establish the kingdom. Now he takes Moses, he says, this is what I made a promise to, I saw to Abraham and to one. Read again there.
And the Lord said unto him,
Right?
This is the land which I swear unto Abraham,
Right?
and unto Isaac,
Right?
and unto Jacob, saying, I will give it unto thy seed.
He was shown, this
I
is the
have
very
caused
land.
thee.
This is the very land which I said I will give them. Do you see, at that time, at the time of Moses, they had not yet been given that land. Right? But that's where the Israelites were heading to. This is the land which I saw to Abraham, to say, this one I've given you, so that he stays all his children who are as many as the sand of the sea. Did you see that? Now he's telling Moses before his death, look at the land. That's the one. that I gave to Abraham, I saw to him. Right? Read on. Yeah.
And okay.
Right?
So Moses, the servant of the Lord,
right,
died there in the land of Moab.
Right.
According to the word of the Lord.
So he saw the land which before he died, he was shown. Here it is. So why was he doing that? Why was God doing that? If it is going to be of no use to Moses, and Moses after his death, we know he's in heaven right now. He was taken. He is in heaven. So if it was of no use because he's still going to be taken, why would God show him on Mount Pisgah? So you see this land? I saw to Abraham. He did not say, this is where the Israelites are coming to settle and enjoy milk and honey and whatever. He said it is of a promise to Abraham. Now the promise still remains until today, because whoever has lived there died, but the promise still remains. You understand? It remains. What are we doing about this promise? As we are now talking about hopping in the cloud and going via without this land, what are we talking about? When we are talking about the end of the time, what are we reading? Are we going to say God lied when we are in the throne here in heaven and say, you lied about that land? When are we going to live it? So he wants us to live in that land before we hop in the cloud. Now, let's read. We are now going to the spirit of prophecy. Patriarchs and Prophets. You go to page 137 and start where saying, still the patriarch begged. Now, still the patriarch begged.
Okay. Still the patriarch begged for some visible token as a confirmation of his faith and as an evidence to after generations that God's gracious purposes toward them would be accomplished.
Still, he begged. He wants some confirmation of this covenant. I want to know more about it. Still, he begged. Right? And what?
The Lord condescended to enter into a covenant with his servant, employing such forms as were customary among men for the ratification of a solemn engagement.
Because if someone says, I promise you I'm going to, you say, write down. And sometimes you say, take a lawyer and sign so that we know this is a promise. Now, Abraham wants that promise. I need more confirmation that you really gave me this land. I need what you have said. I need a token of it. You understand? Now,
by divine direction, Abraham sacrificed, dividing the bodies and laying the pieces a little distance apart.
Now he built an altar. And that altar is just to confirm. You understand? The way he is going to divide the pieces of the animal there, he wants that confirmation. And read.
This being done, he reverently passed between the parts of the sacrifice, making a solemn vow to God of perpetual obedience.
Do you see what he has done? He has never done in any altar. In that altar, because it is a solemn vow, he had to pass in between the thing that he has sacrificed. He had to pass as a token, as a stamp, to say that land he has been given. Do you understand? It was not just given by hearsay or talking to each other like a friend. He had to do something to make sure you have actually stood by the promise that you have said, it is mine and my descendants and all the children, all the generations, as many as the sand of the sea. He had to walk in the sacrifice, pass through. You understand? And what?
About sundown,
right?
He sank into a deep sleep.
Now, after doing all that show, he was tired. He was in a deep sleep. You see, God is now confirming, I really mean it. I really mean it. Read on.
About sundown, he sank into a deep sleep.
Right?
And lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him.
Right?
And the voice of God was heard.
Right. So God had to visit. He made sure he slept in a deep sleep and visited him. Only to confirm the land is his. It's not only a signature like we do with the lawyers and whatever and it's done. No. There was a lot that was done just to confirm the land is his and his children. Whoever are going to be Christians, he says, you are heirs according to the promise. Right? And what?
The plan of redemption
Right?
was here open to him.
Right. When he was sleeping now, what did God show him? He now showed him the plan of salvation. Yeah? And,
In the death of Christ,
right?
the great sacrifice, and his coming in glory.
Now, what is he showing him when he's in a deep sleep? He's showing Christ coming now with the kingdom to make sure, how are you going to inherit this kingdom? How are you going to, your children, to stay in this land that I've given you? Now, he's seeing Christ coming. And what?
Abraham
Right.
saw also the earth restored
To its Eden.
beauty.
Now, he is in a deep sleep. Now, because God, Abraham wants more confirmation. So God said, I will give you the confirmation. Don't worry. He did that sacrifice and did all the styles that you read, what he was doing. And then he was tired. He fell into a deep sleep. And then God also did his part. He's now showing him. He is showing him how it's going to be done, what he has promised. How is it going to be inherited by your seed? How? He saw Christ coming. Do you believe Christ is going to come? So that vow is fulfilled. Do you believe? And some are believing that they ought to hope before that thing is done. But look, our patriarch, our father Abraham was shown how the seed is going to inherit the land. It was the coming of Christ in a cloud. And what? Read on. Right? We are on Patriarchs and Prophets. Yeah, on Patriarchs and Prophets on 845, 0845. Patriarchs and Prophets 137.1. Right? So here he's saying,
This, okay.
right. You said the Lord condescended to enter into a covenant. We saw that one in one Patriarchs and Prophets. Read from where you left.
The plan of redemption was here open to him.
Right?
In the death of Christ, the great sacrifice, and his coming in glory.
Right. And
Abraham saw also the earth restored to its Eden beauty,
right,
to be given him for an everlasting possession as the final and complete fulfillment of the promise.
Did you see? Now he's laying the draft of the promise. The coming of Christ to fulfill the promise. He saw how the children are going to inherit the land of promise. We have identified the land. We have seen now how Christ has to come, and also how the Garden of Eden is set back. This is what the devil was scared of when Christ died. Do you understand? Now, let's read on again where it starts as a pledge.
As a pledge.
Yeah, in this very Patriarchs and Prophets, page 137.1. Yeah, as a pledge.
As a pledge of this covenant of God with men, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp, symbols of the divine presence, passed between the severed victims, totally consuming them.
Right?
And again, a voice was heard by Abraham, confirming the gift of the land of Canaan to his descendants.
Right. Now again, when he's doing the sacrifice, the voice came to confirm this land I've given to you and your seed. How will they inherit it? By Christ coming and making sure the Garden of Eden is given back as it was in Adam and Eve. That's why we say back to Eden. What is it back to Eden? Not only to be vegetarians only, but also to establish the land of promise. To be there as it was promised by God to Abraham, that you and your seed, as many as the sand of the sea, you will go to the broth of it, go to the south, north. Those who do not want to be in that kingdom, never mind. They are not subject to the children of Abraham. If you are a child of Abraham, this is a promise to you and me. Do you understand? But how are you preparing for the end time without this covenant promise? How then? Now read on.
From the river of Egypt unto the great river.
And the demarcations are there. You start from the south, which is the river of Egypt, and also to the what?
Great river.
To the great river Euphrates. All this is the land for you and your seed. There is no prophecy about it. It's all clear clear words which you and I, if you have got good ears, you hear. Yeah, you understand? And what?
From the river of Egypt unto the river Euphrates.
Right?
The beginning point of the restoration before the second coming of Jesus.
It will be done before the second coming of Jesus. Is there in black and white? It is in black and white. I don't know, those who want to bypass this promise. This promise, you cannot preach about the end without the covenant promise of the land. You understand? Now let's see. Just read the other verses in the Bible just to confirm what we have read. Otherwise, we have finished the lesson. The lesson is finished. But what we are now reading is the confirmation of other prophets talking about the same. Now, let's start with the Genesis chapter 26, verse 5. Right?
Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments,
right,
my statutes, and my laws.
Right?
And Isaac...
No, 26 verse 5. And I will make thy seed.
And I will make thy seed to multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all the countries, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
Do you see? In thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. And next verse. Because that Abraham
obeyed my voice,
right,
and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws.
What did he do? He was God's friend. Why? He was not keeping the 10 Commandments alone. He kept my charge and obeyed my voice. Did you hear? Right? My commandments, yeah? My statutes. Statutes are feasts. You see? This is what you are. My laws. So what was he keeping? He was not keeping one thing. He kept his statutes, the feasts. He was a keeper of the feasts. He was the keeper of the 10 Commandments. He was the keeper of the voice of God. He was the keeper of the covenant promise. Did you hear that? Now let's go to Genesis chapter 17, verse 7.
Verse 7. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant,
right,
to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee.
Right. So here we are seeing this covenant is something that should be in our lives right through to the end until it is fulfilled by God. Now let's read from Patriarchs and Prophets, page 370. Start from the covenant, in brackets, which is agreement, right?
The covenant.
Covenant is an agreement, right, between Abraham and God. So he blessed him and his seed. Why? They agreed. What did they agree? To keep the commandments, to keep the voice of God, to keep the statutes, to keep all that. You cannot claim of the covenant of God only keeping 10 commandments. No. That's why even the heading for our lesson is the 5 angels' messages. Yeah? So we have proceeded to the 5. The 5 angels' messages has to have all the covenant promises. Yeah? Because we get it from the word to the little flock here. It says, if this is true, that these 5 angels from Revelation 14, verse 6 to 17, there are 5 angels' messages coming to those who are going to be inheriting the kingdom. Now, never mind those who go halfway through. But if you want to inherit the kingdom, the 5 angels' messages should make sure prepares you for the kingdom. The 5 angels' messages is what we preach. I heard people still preaching the first angel, some second, some third. But we have gone to 4th and 5th. So our topic here is 5. There's 3 this side, there's 2 there. So these are arranged. The 3 we have seen from Sister White. We have seen the first angel, yeah, which was William Miller. First angel, second angel's message, William Miller. Third angel's message, Sister White. And then we see 2 more coming as harvest messages. This is what will make an inheritor of the kingdom quite complete. So we preach the word of the 5th angel's message. This is what will prepare us for the kingdom. You understand? Now let's read on about this covenant. To all men, this covenant offered, right?
To all men, this covenant offered pardon
Right.
and the assisting grace of God for future obedience through faith in Christ.
Right?
It also promised them eternal life on condition of fidelity to God's law.
Right?
Thus the patriarchs received the hope of salvation.
Right? The same?
This same covenant
Right?
was renewed to Abraham in the
What?
promise.
It was renewed to Abraham in the promise. So it means it started with Adam, right? Now renewed to Abraham. We saw even the Ten Commandments being renewed to the Israelites because it started from the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and then renewed, and that's why he says to the Israelites, remember to keep the Sabbath holy. It was a renewal. Now this covenant was also renewed to Abraham, right? It was done to Adam. It was preached by Enoch. It was now all the genealogy until now we're taking it from Abraham and going further with it, right? It was renewed. So this same covenant
pointed to Christ.
right?
So Abraham understood it. See Galatians 3 verse 8 to
Yeah.
16.
He understood the covenant. Let's go to Galatians chapter 3 verse 8. He understood the covenant. Abraham did understand that covenant. Galatians chapter 3 verse 8 and 16, right?
And the scripture, foresetting that God would justify the heathen through faith, preached before the gospel unto Abraham,
Right.
saying, in thee shall all the nations be blessed.
Right. And verse 16?
Verse 16. Now to Abraham
To
and
Abraham
his seed
and his seed.
was a promise made.
Yeah.
He said not, and to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed which is in Christ.
So it's not many seeds. It should be one seed. So what is the seed of Abraham? The keeper of the covenant. Now, when you have that covenant, then you are identified with Abraham's seed. Not seeds, but seed. One seed. Which what? He keeps the voice of God. He keeps the statutes. He keeps the Ten Commandments. He keeps all the covenant promises. That's the seed of Abraham. Now here, it was this faith. God, on Patriarchs and Prophets, page 370.
It was this faith that was accounted unto him for righteousness.
What faith is recorded in Hebrews chapter 11? The faith of Abraham looking forward to this covenant promise. He had faith. You remember what he has done to make sure the covenant is really confirmed. He had faith. He died with faith that the covenant is going to be established. It will be fulfilled. Why? He had a deep sleep and saw Christ coming to establish the kingdom on earth, and the whole earth was the Garden of Eden. He saw that. That was the covenant promise which he was given by God. How the seed is going to be inheriting the land he was shown. He was shown. Right? And
it was this faith that was accounted unto him for righteousness.
Right.
The covenant.
So he said, by faith, Abraham, what are you talking about? When you say by faith, Abraham, what faith? He had faith of this covenant. He was a righteous man and promised because of his righteousness, he was given something. He was given an inheritance because of his faith. So he died with that faith. He knows the children will be established. That's why even in the kingdom, the verses say Abraham will be there and Isaac will be there, Jacob will be there. They will be there when the kingdom is going to be established. Why? Even the 12 gates of the kingdom will have all the names of the patriarchs, all the names of the disciples, all that because of the covenant promise. Now, if you profess another faith, which is different from this one, no, we are talking about somebody else. But when you talk about Abraham's seed, we talk about the covenant promise. Abraham's seed cannot be Abraham's seed without the covenant promise. Now you talk about the coming of Christ. Where? Without the covenant promise? No, it's not it. There's someone else coming, not Christ. Christ promised it to Abraham, coming to establish. And Abraham saw him coming. in a deep sleep, establishing the kingdom on this earth. And there was a Garden of Eden which had been taken by the devil when he made Adam and Eve sin. Do you understand? Now, let's go. The testimony.
The testimony of God concerning his faithful servant.
No, have you read the above where you were reading?
The covenant with Abraham
Right.
also maintained the authority of God's law.
Right. The covenant of Abraham maintained the authority of the law of God. Which law? He had the 10 Commandments. He had the statutes, the feasts. He had the judgments. He had the voice of God. The covenant maintained all those laws. Now you cannot keep those laws and ignore the covenant. You have to do, the covenant has all those laws. So don't just pinch any law and start keeping it, ignoring what covenant it is under. Do you understand? Now, the testimony.
The testimony of God
Yeah.
concerning his faithful servant was, Abraham obeyed my voice
Right?
and kept my charge,
Right?
my commandments,
Right.
my statutes, and
Right?
my laws.
That's the law. The covenant has got those law. One, what law? The Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my commandments and my statutes, which are the feasts, and my laws. Not only one commandment and then you go haywire with it. No, you have to keep the covenant has got all those laws. Right? And what? This is in Genesis chapter 26 verse 5. And the Lord declared.
And the Lord declared to him, I will establish my covenant between me
Me.
and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations,
Right?
for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and unto thy seed after thee.
So when you are talking about God, when you want God to be a God unto us, it's because of the covenant. It's because of all those laws. Then he becomes a God of us, as children of Abraham, as the seed, as to the covenant promise. You understand? Now, this is very, very easy. We have been given a very good syllabus. The syllabus is fall under Abraham. When you fall under Abraham, the covenant promise is there. And when the covenant promise, what is it involving? It's involving all those laws, the statutes, which are the feasts, the commandments, the voice of God, the charge. That's what you are talking about when you're talking about the covenant promises. You understand? Now, go to the same 371, the covenant.
371.
Now, my question is, did this covenant promise extend up to the time of Christ or up to our time? We want to see if it extends up to our, or it was also nailed to the cross, like this, the common phrase that everyone who is lazy to do what God wants says, oh, nailed to the cross, and forgets about it. Do you understand? Now, the covenant, read from 371, the covenant of grace.
The covenant of grace was first made with man in Eden.
That's what Patrick's and Prophets is telling us. Sister White telling us that covenant of grace. We said the covenant of grace occurred soon after the covenant of glory. The kingdom of glory was taken off, and then the kingdom of grace was established when they sinned. So it was established when men were in the Garden of Eden, right? Read on.
This same covenant was renewed to Abraham in the promise,
right?
In thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed.
Right?
I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant.
Right?
Though this covenant was made with Adam and renewed to Abraham, it could not be ratified
or made valid,
until the death of Christ.
Right?
When ratified by Christ, it is called a new covenant.
Now, after Christ died, it's now called a new covenant. But was the covenant taken off? No, it was renewed. Now, let's read from Prophets and Kings. Prophets and Kings, page 713. Now, let's see how it was renewed. Because when he died, we have now a new covenant. And people say, oh, we're no longer keeping 10 commandments. We have a new covenant. No, the very covenant the very laws which were in the old are still in the new. This is what I know. Now read from Prophets and Kings, page 713 or 714. That which God
purposed to do for the world through Israel, the chosen nation,
right?
He will finally accomplish through His church on earth today,
right?
Even to His commandment, the covenant keeping people.
Are we called covenant keeping people? Right? There is a covenant. It's going to be accomplished by the church today, right? And what?
And to them will be fulfilled all the covenant promises made by Jehovah to His ancient people.
Now, if you read it from the it says these witnesses. Let's go to Prophets and Kings. Prophets and Kings, and read it properly from the book itself. That which God purposed.
That which God purposed to do for the world through Israel,
right?
The chosen nation, He will finally accomplish through His church on earth today.
Right.
He has let out His vineyard,
right,
unto other husbandmen.
You see, God is confirming that the vineyard is still now in other husbandmen. He's not doing that covenant. He's not upholding the covenant. That's what God is saying there. And what?
Even to His covenant keeping people.
But they are covenant keeping people, but they are other husbandmen, right?
Who faithfully render Him fruits in their season.
Right?
Never has the Lord been without true representatives on this earth.
One is there with other husbands, but God has got true representatives in these covenant keeping people who will what? Read.
Who have made His interest their own.
These ones who are making His interest their own interest. Yes, it should be your own interest to keep the covenant. Do not run with the trend of people who do not want to keep this covenant. The covenant is got people who make it their own. Their own. When they say they are going to keep these feasts, they keep their own as if they are brothers and sisters with God. Because they took His covenant which He gave to Abraham and made it theirs. You understand? And what?
Never has the Lord,
right?
Never has the Lord been without true representatives on this earth,
right,
who have made His interest their
own. Yeah.
These witnesses for God,
right,
are numbered among the spiritual
Israel. They are just
Israel.
Numbered. They are not everyone on the spiritual Israel. They are numbered who have taken upon themselves to have the covenant promise. Right? They are numbered. That's why we have a number. 144,000 is a number. These witnesses are numbered. They are being numbered in spiritual Israel. But how are they numbered? By keeping the covenant promise. Right?
And to them will be fulfilled.
And God
all
gives
the covenant promises.
all the covenant promise to them. Now, do you want to be numbered amongst the 144,000? The covenant promise is there for you. One, we're told last night on the video on circumcision. If you can't, go to BSM TV and find it. Circumcision, it is one of the covenant promise. In the whole Genesis 17 should be your syllabus, where God called Abraham and said, your children will be circumcised. And He says, at the 8th day. We saw it on the video. Go and run through it again. It is a covenant promise. And then next was given land. It's a covenant promise. And He says, to spiritual Israel, these witnesses are numbered. They are numbered. Why? Because some refuse. It's not that God is saying, no, you, no. We take ourselves out of the covenant promise. When we refuse these promises that were given to Abraham, which were confirmed, and God is saying through Sister White, they are going to be fulfilled by the numbered few from spiritual Israel. It's you to put yourself, to put your name in the number. 144,000 is a number. They are numbered. Do you understand? And what? Have you finished? Right. Let's hear from Testimonies for the Church, volume 7, page 242. Start where He says, I'm instructed.
I am instructed to say to you, move gradually.
Move guardedly.
Oh, move guardedly.
Right.
Doing always that which the Lord commands.
Right. How are you numbered? Just do what He commands. How are we going to prepare for the kingdom? Do what He commands. Move guardedly. When you say guardedly, you guard. Guarding is making sure nothing interferes. You guard. Like He says to the Sabbath, guard jealously the edges of the Sabbath. Meaning, if someone just come on a Sabbath and does something which is prohibited on a Sabbath, guard it and say, no, I'm on a Sabbath, you're polluting my Sabbath. Please, if the children start playing outside, playing rope, playing this, and so, it's still the Sabbath of God. Quietness, for the Lord is in his holy temple. And because there are some who finish the Sabbath at 12 o'clock, alas, the Sabbath is sunset to sunset. So you have to guard jealously. Now, even these promises, the covenant promises, you guard jealously. You guard and walk according to how God has commanded. Now, and what he will work
in behalf of his covenant-keeping people.
He will work for us. If we are covenant-keeping people, he will make sure we enter the kingdom. Now, let's go again to Prophets and Kings there, just on 299. In the last days, right? Let's hear. Because this covenant, I'm saying, the question is, did it extend to our time? Now, what does it say in 299? Start when you say in the last days.
In
right?
the last days
right?
of this earth's history,
right?
God's covenant with his commandment-keeping people is to be renewed.
Did you see? So it means we have a last Abraham. We have an Abraham of the day who renews it with the people. Yes, of course, we are told there is Elijah, we are told there is David, there is Moses, people who are leading in the last days, a prophet in the last day. Why? To renew the covenant. It is to renew. He does not just renew with people like you are giving maize to chicken and just spread it like that. He is an organized God. He has a prophet to renew the covenant like he did to Abraham. Now, it is going to be renewed. That's what he said. But who is doing that? Because we are seeing nobody renewing the covenant of the land, which was given to Abraham. Nobody. We have seen no one. And the people actually want to bypass the kingdom and go to heaven. What about this covenant? It is to be renewed in our days. Do you understand? Now let's read. We want to enumerate this covenant. We had seen it earlier before the Psalms 105. We saw it. So there's no point to read it. But let's go to Christ's object lesson on page 290. So the children of Israel, where it says the children of Israel.
The children of Israel were to occupy all the territory which God appointed them.
That's the covenant. The covenant was given, and when they went out of Egypt, they were going to occupy the whole territories which God had said to Abraham. And what? As the numbers
of Israel
increased,
they were to enlarge their borders until their kingdom should embrace the world.
Right. So they were going to start from Israel, right? As they increased, they were going to enlarge the border. Have you heard about the mustard seed? It's a tiny seed, but when it grew, what did it do? It covered the whole earth, and the birds came to sit on it. So that's how the kingdom is going to be established. It's going to start with a few people, and next we have been told the branch is cut and put on top of the mountain, and that's how it is going to be started. And then it will enlarge until thy kingdom of this world, the kingdom of the world, will become the kingdom of our God. This is what we sing all the time. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We are singing the kingdom without noticing. Now, Jeremiah chapter 31. I love the books of Jeremiah chapter 30, chapter 31. Read those two chapters and enjoy how the kingdom is going to be established. Now we are on Jeremiah chapter 31, verse 35.
Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinances of the moon and of the stars for a light by night.
Right.
If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before
He will still have a people called Israel. He will still have a people, be it spiritual Israel, be it being Christians, they will still inhabit the land. He says that is as permanent as seeing the sun. When any day there is no sun, then it means God is gone. So, but we have no day without the sun. The sun is there. So that seed will still be there. The seed of Abraham will continue to be there as the sun, as the stars, as everything. Now, if you go to Answer Book, number 2, page 84 and 85, we are going to start reading from there. That's the great controversy.
Okay. That great controversy between Christ and Satan.
Now we want to hear, what is the great controversy between Christ and Satan? Right?
Is over this crowning hope,
right.
The kingdom.
It's over the kingdom. Imagine, just from the word go when Adam and Eve were created, their whole argument between the devil and God is that kingdom. The great controversy between God and Satan is on the kingdom. Why? When God is saying it's going to be established, the devil says it's not going to be established. He's making sure this world remains his own. But God wants this world to be taken to be the Garden of Eden as he had created Adam and Eve, and it will start. It will be established like it was seen by Abraham when he was in a deep sleep. He came and established when he was sleeping. Christ came and established the kingdom. Now, that's why Sister White says Christ is coming to... I have a quotation, I've just forgotten, where it says Christ is coming to establish the kingdom. And Sister White knew it. It's coming to establish the kingdom. While others are saying he's coming to take us. Not now. Now, let's hear more. That's great controversy.
That great controversy between Christ and Satan is over this crowning hope, the kingdom, is seen from the Lord's repeated instructions in the prophecies,
right?
In the types and in the parables.
All the parables, if you go to Matthew chapter 25 or to Matthew 13 or whatever, all the parables were about the kingdom. When it said, this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached. Or the parable about the sower. It was just the parable about the wheat and tares. All that was about the kingdom. So it means their great controversy is on the kingdom. So in the last day, when Christ shall come, we will have two people. One side, one of the people is preparing for the kingdom. And one is saying, I'm going to go in the cloud. And yet going nowhere. We have those two people until Christ comes. Why? Because we have a great controversy between Christ and the devil. Those who say the kingdom is going to be established will be surely saved. Those who say it's never, we are going first to heaven and whatever, will be so sad because the kingdom is going to be established first. Now, the great controversy between Christ and Satan is of the kingdom. That's why when Adam and Eve were created and put in the Garden of Eden, the devil tried to take them and take possession of the kingdom. But God has to do it and replace it before we go to heaven. Otherwise, the devil will say, you failed when I was there. So he has got to do it when the devil is there. Right? And what? Okay.
In the types and in the parables, from Satan's constant effort to keep the human race out of it, and last, from human beings repeatedly being defeated in their warfare to become heirs of it.
So, how does the devil fight God about the kingdom? He's fighting one to make sure the effort of being the effort of establishing the kingdom is taken from the people, and now using even human beings to make sure one, Adam and Eve was out of the kingdom. Next, those who want to go back, when God took the Israelites out of Egypt, they were going to establish that kingdom. He made sure there's nothing like that. And when God said, now in our time, we're supposed to go back and the kingdom is going to be established, when he comes, he's taking it away again. This is the great controversy from the beginning to the end. And read on. Working determinedly
from the beginning to plunge all humanity into hell.
From the beginning, he wanted, when Adam and Eve sinned, he wanted everyone to go to hell. Right? And
working determinedly from the beginning to plunge all humanity into hell.
Right?
Satan conceived his major strategy of misleading them concerning the kingdom.
He misled. When Christ came for the first time, he misled those who were waiting, who were with him when he came. You know, they rejected Christ being incited by the devil so that the kingdom is not established. Because by right he was supposed to die and they anoint him, according to Daniel chapter 9. But he made sure they do not get the kingdom. Right? And what? Mm-hmm.
He succeeded with most of the Jews because they wanted the kingdom set up before its appointed time of not at all.
Right. So when he came, already the kingdom was prescribed in Daniel chapter 2. We saw it where? In the 10 toes. But they kept on pressing hard for him to what? We saw it last week when he was riding on top of the donkey. They were thinking the kingdom now is going to be established and whatever. They kept on wanting it to be established on the wrong time. The wrong appointed time. And what? Uh-huh.
He succeeded with most of the Jews because they wanted the kingdom set up before its appointed time or not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he is succeeding with many of the Laodiceans today.
Right?
Because now, when the time appointed actually has come, they want to have it later or not at all.
So he's deceiving.
What a paradox.
Now, he deceived those who were there when he came. They wanted to force him to start the kingdom. Because it was the wrong time, wrong appointed time. But those who in a correct time, in a right appointed time, he's misleading the Laodiceans and saying, instead, let it be started when we come back from heaven. Instead of starting the kingdom before we go to heaven. You see, he's misleading both groups. Our group and those who were there when Christ came for the first time. You see? And what? Mm-hmm.
What an irony.
What an irony.
Indeed.
Yeah?
As history repeats itself, so does folly.
Mm-hmm. Right? Now, for us to continue in this study, we'll continue on the new moon on Monday. Today 17, 18, and then 19. 19, Monday, 19, we'll continue. 19th of October, we'll continue about this kingdom until we see how exactly, what are the few signs that are there that we should mark in, yes, now we are going in the kingdom. Yes. We should study all that and study the times when the kingdom is going to be established. Peradventure, when Christ comes, he gets some people ready for the establishment of the kingdom. When the people are ready, he will surely come to establish. You and I shouldn't miss this important episode of getting into the kingdom. May God bless our study so that we can enjoy while we prepare for the soon coming kingdom.